What's up guys, Cass here from GiveWave Studios, and on this one I'm going to show you how to turn all of these pieces into the Bowsette crown, or Bowsette, or Chompette, or blank et blank set. You get the idea. Super crown. Let's get it. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is sand the edges of all of our laser cut pieces. That is, if you purchased the kit from my store. If you purchased the pattern, when you cut your pieces, you won't have to worry about having any charred edges. So if you can see here, this is what the laser leaves behind. So it's like this cut on here. And what we're gonna try to do, as you can tell from this one, I basically grabbed a Dremel. You can do this with sandpaper, whatever you have available, that you can sand the edge so that it looks more like the surface of your foam than it does the edge. Now, mind you, the kit comes in a bunch of different colors. It really doesn't matter the color of the foam that you get. At the end of the day, you're gonna have to paint it, seal it, and all that stuff. So on all of your pieces, if you did get the kit, get all of these edges nice and soft, right? Just like the foam on the surface, and sand those down. So I'm gonna fast forward that process and catch you guys for the next step. All right, so with all of our parts sanded, so you sand the edge of the star looking thing here, sand the edge of the disc, sand the edges of all of your horn pieces, okay, and then sand these edges on the inside of this and these edges on the outside of that. All right, that's pretty much everything sanded, and now we're going to assemble. And so use contact cement. I'm gonna remember, when you use contact cement, you use it on both sides that you're gluing together. So you're gonna put it on this side and put it on this side, and then you're gonna glue it together. So I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward through some of these, and then I'll slow down for one horn and for the little puff thing to kind of give you guys a more step-by-step on how to go through it. Alright, so that's the top piece of the crown, in the back with the seam, and you can always go in and sand this down to get it a bit less seamless. Okay, so with that done, what we're gonna do is grab the flat piece of 5mm that you have, and I'm not working on the piece right now because I've already cut this, but I'm just gonna give you guys a sense of what it is that you're doing. You're gonna grab a ruler or something straight, and you're going to brace it right up against the edge. You're going to use the edge of the ruler to kind of guide your knife and cut into it at a slight angle. Okay, and you get something like this. Can you tell? Right? It's like at a slight angle as opposed to being straight. So if I show you this pre-cut piece, you'll be able to see that this edge is at a slight angle while this edge is straight. And the reason for that is so that when we glue this to the edge here, it doesn't like bow out or in, it just comes out straight and sits right on the edge, because the inside of this is flat, and this angle helps to offset this trim so that it comes down straight. Okay, so once you have that done, and we're just gonna glue this trim to that, and after seal or glue the two ends of our trim together. We'll do that first. Okay, and you want to do this with the angle facing out. So your angle should be facing out. So that should be the surface of the part. And come to think of it, I probably will send all of the DIY kits pre-cut at an angle, so people don't have to worry about it too much. So just pay attention to the side that has the angle and then you're gonna glue that flush up against the edge. So start from the back, align the two seams together, and then just kind of go back and forth, left and right, to make sure that it's gluing nice and aligned. Okay. And try to press it up against the edge as cleanly as you can. All right, so that is that. All right, we have a little lip for this. And now with this little lip, we're gonna go ahead and grab our rounded trim, and we're just going to glue this to that. Now, you'll notice that this might not go all the way around. Not to worry, okay? The foam is super stretchy, so all you have to do is just tug a little bit at a time. All right, section per section. And I didn't even put that much pressure on the foam just now. Look how much more I have, okay? So no worries if you get a piece that looks like it won't go all the way around. It will. Just give it a little tug, stretch it out a little bit, and then it should reach. So basically, once you've tugged it, you can kind of get a sense of where it is that it ends. You can trim it right there. And then on this one, you don't want to assemble it first. You want to do your trim, and then once you get there, just kind of bridge the two together. So I'm going to fast forward that process and get you guys from the next. All right, so once you've reached the end there, just kind of bring your piece in, meet the two ends, and after the two ends have met, just push it down so that it glues onto the trim. And there you go. All right. And now the next step will be to heat this up a little bit. This piece is going to go on the inside of your crown. And the two holes that you see are there in case you want to put a headband through this. So headband, that way you guys can wear it with a wig or whatever you want to. Okay, and do make sure that you position this so that the dots are left and right of the crown points, so that it's not crooked when you wear it. Another thing you might want to do after you heat this is just kind of push into it a little bit and give it a little bit of a dome so that it's not completely flat. That way when it rests up against your head, it sits nice and flush and smooth, and it doesn't look like it's popping off, but actually looks like it belongs on top of your dome like a true princess. Okay, you got that? And then bring that in here, and when you're ready, or if you want to use this, because you don't have to, but it's a part that's there for you to use if you feel the need. Once that's there, you can glue this in with hot glue right here on the edges from the inside. That'll make it a lot easier than doing it with just the contact cement. But either way, glue this in. So I waited for these things to completely dry up, the little foam ball. So you guys are getting the styrofoam. I'm just using these for the purpose of the tutorial, but the process is the same. So basically, you guys are getting these styrofoam pellets here, all right? And this is more so an example to show you guys what happens when you don't use any type of like paint primer on the styrofoam. The paint will literally eat away at the foam. Whereas if you do coat it with like a latex paint that you can find at like your local Home Depot, they usually have these for like sale. They're like mist tints. They're usually like $1 or $2. You can do like 2 or 3 coats and really go from something that's, you know, looks like a meteorite to something that's a little nicer. Obviously, the more coats you put on it, the smoother it's gonna be. So that's pretty much how those pieces are gonna work. Basically, you're just gonna kind of position them on your crown, figure out where the bottom is, just kind of make a mark and then score into it one way, this way, and then this way. Basically drawing, cutting in a type of rectangle, basically. And then once you have your rectangle cut, just kind of use your X-Acto blade, knife, or whatever you have on hand to kind of dig a channel into the little foam ball, and then you're going to insert it in place, and obviously use your contact cement to glue them in place. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through that process and catch you guys for the next step. Alright, so this is what our final piece of the crown should look like. Now again, remember you guys are getting styrofoam balls. These balls I made out of the foam clay. I mean, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can purchase that too, just in case you don't like the foam balls, or I don't know, you want to do your own thing. But your kit does come with some balls. Just remember to do some latex paint on your balls, at least like 2 or 3 coats, or some acrylic paint, 2 or 3 coats, so that if you do some spray painting, it doesn't eat away at that particular type of foam because of the solvents. All right, so for the horns, before you start gluing them, I would go ahead and shape them a little bit, not too much. So just go ahead on each piece and kind of push inwards, kind of fold it up against itself. Just kind of give it a little bit of curve and a little bit of dimensionality. I'm gonna show you guys 2 separate pieces to give you an idea of what it is that I'm doing. You can also heat it up a little bit to help with the bending aspect of it, or the curving aspect of it. Okay. Put a little bit of curve inside of this. Lovely. All right. So what I want you guys to realize is the difference between a curved piece and a flat piece, right? So you see this is nice and curved, this is flat, and you want to do that to most of your part. Only thing you need to be conscious of is for each horn, you'll notice that there's a little symbol or a little pattern, a little bit of an etch, and they all end up matching with each other. This is to help show you which piece goes where. All right, you match the triangle with the triangle, the circle with the circle, the line with the line, and that is, and of course the blank with the blank. So that gives you a full 360. So you glue each part to another with the corresponding symbols. Only thing you want to do is to make sure that your symbols are facing the inside of your piece. So if I'm looking at this piece and I'm going to curve it, I'm going to curve it so that the symbol is on the inside of the curve. That way this is not on the outside and you don't have to sand it out. It's just there to kind of help guide you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do this one step by step with you guys. So we're going to go ahead and start at the base. I've already put glue on both sides and I've already curved them, okay, the way that I explained earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and start this at the base, making sure that it's lined on the outside first. Okay, that, like that, like that, and like so. So now we have our first half. Okay, and it's okay if these don't necessarily line up. Just follow the curve and let the foam fall in its place naturally, and everything will work out. All right, and so again, I'm going to start here at the base. I might need a little bit more glue. When you leave the barge to dry for too long, it becomes not as sticky. So it's kind of like you don't want to wait more than like a minute and a half or 2 minutes for it to dry? Well, that really depends on how thinly you apply it. A really good way of doing this is, you know, just kind of like think of it as putting mustard on a hot dog. So like spread a little bit of it on the piece, maybe grab a scrap piece of foam or your finger and just spread it nice and thin. Because when it's thick, one, it takes forever to dry. Two, it doesn't give you really nice seams. It'll give like a thick clunk in between the parts. So again, I'm gonna do this starting from the bottom. Now we're here. And just let the foam naturally follow its path. So I'm not worried about lining the symbols up on the inside. As you can see, they don't line up. They're really only there just so you know which one goes to which part. Okay. All right. There. All right. Sometimes what I like to do is invert the piece a little bit to try and get it to sit a wee bit more flush. All right. And once your halves are formed, you can go ahead and curve the whole half overall. Okay, so I'm gonna put this back. I'm gonna curve the whole piece overall. All right. Do give it enough time to dry though. I know that my barge is dry, so give it some time to dry before you start pulling at it, or else, you know, it's not gonna work out for you. Okay, again, making sure that our symbols are facing each other. So now circle to circle. Feel free to bend the foam however you see fit to make it comfortable for you to get it to line up. All right, so right now I'm kind of like reversed the positioning of everything right now. Just so, and then as you get to the tip, you can kind of force it to line up where it needs to be. This can swing back out. And now comes the hard part, is closing the entire thing. So you will notice that you won't get a complete shutdown here. And what you're gonna wanna do is you can grab a sharp knife and kind of cut this at an angle. The easiest way to do this would be to just sand it down. So if I have the Dremel here, all right, so you can tell basically what I've done is just kind of tapered the foam. See how it goes from the 5mm to almost 2mm. That's gonna make it easier for me to just kind of curl it onto itself and glue it. And even if it comes out uneven, I can always just Dremel or sand it down so it can be nice and smooth. All right, so reapply the glue to the places where I've taken it off in general. There, and then all right, so let's start this process. So we'll go ahead and try to line our pieces up as well as we can to the outside. My glue's starting to come apart, so I didn't wait long enough for it to dry, but I think I'll be fine. But at this point, the glue will wanna tend to separate a little bit. So, as you're doing this, you can grab a piece of tape and just kind of stitch it down so that it doesn't open up on you, so that you can focus on the rest of the areas. So following the curve, following the curve and basically shutting it down. And now that we get to the very top here, it becomes a lot easier for us to close this because we tapered everything. All right. So this literally is probably the hardest part of this build, is just getting the horns as smooth as possible. But again, even if you have some seam lines, you can always go in with your Dremel and Dremel down the seam lines. All right, but that is one horn down, one to go. So I took my, all right, so I'm gonna fast forward through the next process and I'll catch you guys at the next step. All right, so take this tape off because this is done gluing, and I'm going to show you guys the difference between, this is after about 30 minutes of sanding and this is without. So the more time you spend on it, the better it'll look. At the end of the day, once you plasti dip this and paint it, you'll see almost none of these seams. All right, so moving on to the next step. All right, now for the second hardest part, these little pieces right here. So what you're gonna do, you have 4 of these, we're gonna heat them up. All right, once you heat them up, you're going to give them as much of a curve as you can towards this edge here. All right, because the amount of curve that you're able to give this will dictate how puffy it looks when it's all put together. So don't be afraid to really dig into it. So just kind of going in and adding as much as a curve as possible with this. All right. And that should be about good right here. Okay, and you're really looking for the curve to really bulb it up right up against these edges here, not so much the bottom but more so the top. So it's this weird balance of keeping the bottom flat but keeping the top curved, which is not super hard to achieve. So you're looking at something like this. All right, so we went from this flat piece to this very dimensional piece, and we're going to do the same thing for all 4 pieces, and then we're going to seal them shut, and then we're going to glue them together. So I'm going to fast forward through that process and catch you guys for the next step. Okay, so this is more or less what your pieces should look like assembled. All right, not super hard, just 4 of these to put together. And of course, you can always sand the seam down to your liking. And after that, now we're going to join all of them at their edges until they form one large piece. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward through that process and catch you guys for the next step. All right, so this is what the little poof looks like completed, and obviously will fit nice and snug inside of your crown. Well, let's put it like this so you guys get a better visual. All right, looking good already, almost done. All right, so you also get 4 of these small discs, 2 of these large discs. It's completely up to you where you place these at this point. I would suggest putting them right where the seams are, so that's one less thing for you to sand. I've seen different variations that have it in the front, that have it on the side, but don't have it on the top. So up to you. You have 6 discs to put on your little puff thing that goes inside the crown. So go ahead and pick the spots where you want them. I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 big ones on the side and then a small one on the front, small one in the back, something like that. All right. All right, so with our little poof assembled, we're starting to look like we're doing something right here. Okay, all right, so just pretend like the balls are on the crown for the rest of the tutorial. All right, so on to the next step. Okay, so before gluing this piece in, you really want to decide how close you want it to the outside or how deep you want it on the inside. You can bring it in as much as you'd like, and then you get like this ledge here, or you can bring it right up to the ledge. The reason why this is, important is you want to try it on with your headband through it and get a sense of how deep this presses into your head, and that's literally going to dictate at which point you're going to glue this. So I'll grab some hot glue. That way I don't have to worry about using the barge for this step, and I will just glue this down on the inside, obviously, but that is pretty much it. All right, so I'm gonna get ready to paint everything. So I'm gonna do at least 2 or 3 coats of Plasti Dip on everything. 15 minutes is usually around the time it takes for the Plasti Dip to dry. You can wait a little longer to be safe. I'm gonna do the horns with this kind of like bone color. I'm going to do the crown obviously with some gold, and then I'll do some pink spray painting or acrylic painting. You don't have to spray paint these, but you should at least Plasti Dip your foam pieces, and then you can go over them with brush, acrylics, or any other types of paints that you may have lying around. All right, so I'm gonna fast forward through that process and catch you guys for the final assembly. All right, so back from the paint booth with all of our pieces, horns. Look at that golden crown. Look at that. All right, our little puff and our horns. All right, so now basically I'm gonna go and just paint the parts that need to be painted. So these little dots are gonna be white. The eyes are gonna be black. Alright, so how to wear this. You can do a couple of things. If you have a headband, you can stick one of the ends in here, route it around, and loop it back into this hole, and just kind of have it do that for you. The way that I'm going to do it is with elastic. So I'm going to feed it on one end, feed it through the other side, like so. So this, I'm doing it with an elastic band because I don't have a headband, but most likely when you wear this, you'll probably use a headband with it because, having an elastic going underneath your chin is kind of ridiculous for this, but you get the idea. So with that there, now what I can do is literally just slide, like if this was here, I can slide this over to one side or the other of your headband to kind of position it so that it's, you know, looking like it's tilted or whatnot have you. And then once you've figured out your position, you can go ahead and grab your, you know, middle fluff piece and go ahead and glue that in. Just put like a little dab of glue on all four corners that actually touch the inside of the crown, and then plop it down right there. Just make sure that you center it exactly where it is that you want it to be. Now, as far as the horns, figure out the direction I want them to face, right? So everyone's gonna be different. So I might want it up like this or out like that, whatever the case. So I'm going to have mine just kind of face up and outwards a little bit, or sorry, say up and inwards a little bit, like this on either side. So what I'm gonna do is look at the width of my elastic or the width of your headband, whatever it is that you're using, and kind of make a mark here. Hopefully you guys can see this. So I'm gonna go right about here, just kind of make a mark of like a slot that I'm gonna cut out so I can feed, in my case, the elastic. In your case, it could be an elastic as well, or it could be a plastic headband, so that you can attach it to a wig or something like that. And then once you have your mark, just go ahead and cut this out. All right, push that out, and then I have my other side. Okay. Once that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and feed my elastic through my slot. Right, one down, go in, the other one, two. Okay. I'm gonna fast forward through the steps for the second one. All right, so I got both of my horns threaded. I got my elastic going through my crown. So now it's just about adjusting the position of either or. You adjust this. There you have it. And then again, you would glue this in place. So that is pretty much it for this tutorial, guys. Oh, also, don't forget to glue your fifth ball in the middle here. So what I ended up doing with mine is I cut it to a certain point. I didn't want it to protrude too much, so I didn't leave too much of the circle there. This is probably like a quarter of the sphere itself. And then place that right on top. Glue the rest, and you're done. Your Bowsette or Bowsette or whatever is done. All right, and you made it all by yourself. So that pretty much sums up this tutorial, guys. I hope it was useful. I'm gonna have the patterns for sale on my Etsy page. I'm gonna have the DIY kits for sale also, and I'll also have this 3D printed version that you can put together too, with the glow-in-the-dark poof. That way, if you want to put some lights underneath it, you can do that. The eyes are removable and have a little bit more dimensionality. So there'll be plenty of options, from, you know, super affordable to painted and ready to wear. All right. So I hope this was useful. If you made it up to this point, congratulations. You probably put together your Bowsette crown and horn or horn. So pretty much, if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I try to get to those as often as I can. And if you purchase the kit from Etsy or the patterns or anything like that, I appreciate the support. And this has been Cass from GiveWave Studios, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.